Is there anything better in the entire world than the smell of a tomato? Like, am I being dramatic, or is this the best smell in the world? I've said before, like, there needs to be a perfume that smells like tomatoes, because nothing smells like summer to me than the way that tomatoes smell. Hi guys, it's Lindy from Small Town Garden Life. Today I am just embracing all things spring. So I'm gonna do a little bit of piddling around the yard. I'm gonna transplant some of my perennial bushes and then add some new ones in, and then also hang out in the seed starting station. So I thought it might be fun to take you with me. I just got back from a trip to Lowe's, so of course I had to get all the plant things. I picked up some mini zinnia seeds. I like to use these to create like a zinnia hedge in my raised beds. They produce all summer long. They're super beautiful and they're really low maintenance. I also got this fun sunny hybrid mix of sunflowers. I just love the different varieties of color in this. And then I got a few things that I'm actually gonna plant outside today. So I got this forget-me-not. I'm gonna use it as a ground cover around one of our large trees. Some Shirley double mix poppies. These are so pretty. Some bachelor buttons. I'm gonna use these in floral arrangements. And then this is my first year growing sweet peas, but I'm really excited. So I just got a early Gyantia mix. I don't think that's right, but whatever. I picked up some more tomatoes. I planted these yellow pears last year and they were delicious and just really pretty to look at in the garden, so I got more of those. And then I also got just some Beef Master tomatoes. Got some beans, because I am doing cattle panel trellises, so I'm gonna have these trellis on those. And then last but not least, some English daisies. I really like the pink color of these, and they'll come back every year. Now, I got a few things for the yard. I got these Shirley Temple peonies. I read that you should plant these in the fall, but it's spring, so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and plant them and we're just gonna roll with it. I got some rhubarb. I don't personally like rhubarb, but I sell at a farmer's market and everyone is always asking for this, so I'm gonna go ahead and plant it and hopefully get a harvest off of this to sell at the market. And then last but not least, I got a Hearty Kiwi. I see these every year, and every year I'm like, what in the world? This is so just different. I have never seen these before. So I finally decided to pick one up. I was reading online about them and it says that you need 2 plants to pollinate, but this box says it's self-pollinating. So I'm gonna plant it and we'll just see if I get a harvest. One thing that I always do whenever I'm buying plants from places like Lowe's is before I will put them in the ground, I will give them a good soak. This just makes sure that their roots have lots of water in them and it kind of brings them back to life. So I'm gonna go ahead and soak these plants before I put them out in the yard. So if you can tell, this is the rhubarb root. It's really dried out and it looks like it needs a little bit of love. So I am going to soak this and bring it back to life before I put it in the ground. And this Hearty Kiwi already has leaves on it and it feels pretty moist in here, but I'm gonna go ahead and soak it as well, just for good measure. I'm probably gonna let these soak for about an hour and then we will plant them outside. Okay, while those are soaking, let's go down to the basement. That is where I start my seeds and have all my grow lights and all that good stuff. And we will put up the seeds. I'll show you how I store my seeds, and then we might transplant some tomatoes that I have started as well. This is my seed starting station. It's always a hot mess, but this is real life, so it is what it is. I have a ton of stuff started already. These are some flowers. I have some baby's breath, some red cotton, which I'm really excited about. I've never grown cotton before. Some asters and some amaranth. Back here I have some loofahs that I've already started. Loofahs don't like their roots disturbed, so I started them in these larger pots with anticipation of just putting this directly into the garden. I have an artichoke, which is actually a perennial, but in my area it does die because it's a little bit too cold. I live in Illinois and I'm zone 6, so I started this indoors. Have some flowers. I have some sweet potato slips back here going, some coleus, all my lovely tomato babes. Now they are about ready to be transplanted, and how you know that is because they have their first set of true leaves. So these are just their cotyledons, their like initial leaves, and then these are their true leaves, and that's a sign that it can be transplanted to a different container. Have some more flowers. These are all celosia. We have some pepper babies back here that are looking really good. I started a bunch of zinnia seeds because I bought some really pretty blush varieties from Floret Flower. So I wanted to make sure that all of them survive, which is why I started them inside. I don't always start zinnias inside, but with this particular variety, I did. And it looks like they are starting to pop up, which is super exciting. All of my cold weather crops are over here. These are brassicas, so broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, all that good stuff. These I've started to harden off already, so they will go outside and live outside here shortly. And then some bells of Ireland that I've started hardening off. I have some stock, which are flowers, some Johnny Jump Up violas, and then back here we have some lettuce that I'll transplant out. And I like to do a mix of direct sowing lettuce and starting lettuce indoors. And then we have a whole bunch of poppies that I will transplant out soon as well. If this isn't your first year gardening, chances are you've probably became a little bit of a seed addict like I have. If you haven't, kudos to you, but I know after my first year gardening, I just felt like I wanted every single variety and I had to have all the seeds, which is not a bad thing, but you do have to have somewhere to put them. So I discovered this is a photo organizer. It's actually for 4x6 pictures, and it comes in this little plastic case, and then it has all these little individual containers that you're supposed to store pictures in, but it is perfect, like literally the perfect size for seeds. So let me show you. For instance, I use a label maker to label mine. You don't have to, you can totally just use tape or whatever. But here is where I keep my squash seeds. And it's the perfect size for your seeds, and it allows for quite a few seeds too. And then they're all in one place, and you can see what you have. Since they're clear, it's nice, you can look and see what you have. And then that way you don't have seeds tucked into like every drawer in your house, and you don't buy duplicates and things like that. So this has been really nice. I've really loved having it. I got this for my birthday off of Amazon, but I believe that Michael's carries these as well. I wanted to show you, whenever I sow my tomatoes indoors and start them under grow lights, I put more than one seed per cell. The reason that I do this is because I want to ensure that I have at least one seed per cell germinate, and then once I have a few that have grown, I will separate them. Some plants have really finicky root systems and don't like to be separated, but I have not found that with tomatoes. An interesting fact about tomatoes is they actually grow roots along the stalk. So if you repot these and you plant it up to this far, from here down will actually form new roots and you'll have a stronger plant. So tomatoes are super resilient and they are easy to grow from seed, so I always just start my own. Whenever I go to separate this, it's as easy as it looks. I am just going to gently pull away, and now I have 3 individual tomatoes that I can pot into bigger containers, and then from here the containers that they go into will be the ones that they stay in until I put them in the garden. A few years ago, I bought a container of solo cups and I planted my tomatoes in them. I did put holes in the bottom before I planted them, but after that, this is what I have been using to put my tomatoes in and put them into the garden for a few years now, and it's been awesome. They're really cheap. They hold up well, and you can use them for at least a few years, and as long as you put the holes in the bottom, they grow really successful tomatoes. So this is what I'm going to transplant my tomatoes into, and then like I said, from here they will go into the garden in about a month, month and a half. One thing you should always do, label your plants. Every single year I think, oh, I'm going to know what that is, and then I don't. So I like to use popsicle sticks to label mine. The reason I like to use these They're cheap and they're biodegradable. So whenever I'm finished with these, I can break them up and throw them into the compost pile instead of having to use plastic. So this has been a perfect alternative for me. But another thing that I've done in the past is I've actually cut up old sour cream containers or cottage cheese containers. Really any container would work. So you can see the back of this is from a sour cream container, and I flip it over and write on it with permanent marker, and this will work as a plant tag as well. So just remember that gardening does not have to be expensive. It's really easy to get caught up in having the perfect garden and the perfect Instagram garden and, you know, the prettiest plant tags and all those things. But at the end of the day, if you're growing your own food, it's a successful garden. Easy as that. These have been soaking for a few hours now, and I want to show you the difference in how they look now after they've been soaked. So here is the rhubarb corum. If you can see now, it is super thick and it looks good and hydrated, and this is how you want to plant it. So that's why it's super important to soak your plants before you put them in the ground. That way you give them a little bit of a head start and hopefully they survive. Now, I also have the peonies, and they are looking awesome too. I was doing a little bit of research on these, and it says that I should plant them 1 to 2 inches below the soil. So I don't want to plant them too terribly deep, otherwise they might not flower. So let's go get these planted. This Hearty Kiwi, I'm still not totally sure what I'm doing. Some places say you need a male and a female, but the box says that it's self-pollinating, so I'm gonna go ahead and plant it out and just hope for the best. I think it might be a little bit too early, but I do have twin boys and I always have limited time, so like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and just plant it out. And I cut the bottom off of an old water jug, and I'm gonna put this on top to serve as a little greenhouse and hopefully keep it warm enough so that it survives. Before I plant this Hearty Kiwi, I need to do a little tender love and care to these beds because I have not touched them since the fall. So I'm gonna rake out any weeds that have already formed and kind of just till up the soil a little bit. And then I'm gonna add some Job's Organic all-purpose fertilizer. You can get really in depth with fertilizers with different plants, but that's not something that I'm super interested in. So I usually just do an all-purpose and I hope for the best. So let's get this kiwi planted. All right, I got the little kiwi planted. I have its tiny little greenhouse over it. So hopefully this survives, but truthfully, I have no idea if it will. So stay tuned and I will update you guys in a later video. This garden bed is already a perennial bed, so I have my Hearty Kiwi, I have a tayberry bush, so I'm gonna go ahead and put my rhubarb here on the end, and that way I'll know that whatever's in this bed is always gonna come back every single year. Alright guys, thanks for hanging out in the garden with me. If this is something that you guys like, make sure to check out my Instagram. It's just at Small Town Garden Life. I talk about all things gardening, all things seed starting, motherhood, thrifting, and sustainable living. Until the next video.